Hello and welcome back to this course of videos on Node.js, the Express framework and the WebSocket protocol using the socket.oi module. Now in this video we're going to be looking at sending actual messages back and forth between users using the WebSocket protocol. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start up a few more user sessions because currently we only have James logged on. I'm going to start a separate session and John is going to log on, and then I'm going to start a third user session, and then I'm going to have Jake join the party. So now all three users are logged on, and we can see James is just going to say hi, and then switch over to John, and John is going to say hello, and then Jake is going to say me too. So we can see now that all three users in sync, all three are seeing three messages that have been communicated. So how does that work on the back end? So let's take a look. We'll take a look at the event listener for when we click this send message button, which is a submit button. So you can see here we are adding our event listener to the submit event, preventing default as we always do because we don't want a full page refresh. I'm using my session storage variable here to make sure the user is actually logged in, and if not, we're just alerting, please log in. I realize alert isn't the best way to notify users, but it's quick and dirty just for demonstrative purposes. Now, so if they are logged in, we are now then going to communicate the message to the server via WebSockets. So I am taking my message that is in the text area, and then we are doing our socket.emit method that we've done before. The message is going to be called message object to server, and what we're passing is this JavaScript object here that has two key value pairs. The first is username, and we're actually using the username that is stored in our session storage. And then the second is the second key is message, and the second value is this our text area message dot value. So the text that is in here. So that's what's being emitted and being sent to the server. Then we're just clearing our text area. So let's now take a look at this message received on the server side with our socket.on. And we can see it right here. Socket.on message object to server. So here's our callback function again. Here's the data that was passed. So that's basically this object here. And then we're saying we're adding our particular object that we passed to the messages array using the push method. Now, a little bit different to what we did with the users. If you remember, with users, we sent back the whole array to all of the clients. Again, we're using plural here. So we're emitting back to all sockets. But instead of sending the full array as we did with users, we are just sending back the object that we received. We're really just echoing this object back to the client. Now the reason we did it this way is because users is going to be a relatively small number, so I was happy that every time a user was added to the array to send back the entire array and dynamically update the page with the new users array. With messages, the messages could get quite large, the list of messages could get very large, and sending back the full array of messages to all clients every time to have them dynamically update the page with all messages would be quite intensive on the client. So in this case, I'm simply just sending back the echoing back the object that was passed. So then we go back. Let's go back to the client side and find on the client side. Mistake, sorry. On the client side here, this is when it's echoed back. Here's our socket.on, and we're receiving this object back that's been echoed back to us from the server. And then we're doing a similar thing to when we dynamically updated our users, but we're actually just appending here. So if you look, I am populating my HTML variable with the new entry that I wish to add to my message div, and I'm populating that entry with the data object that's been echoed back, and using dot notation to pull the username and the message. You can see here's the username and here's a message. And then my HTML variable, this text variable, I'm actually adding the existing HTML, so the HTML that was already in my chat div, and then I'm populating that HTML variable back into the chat area using the inner HTML property. And if you notice with the way we are doing this, if I actually add a message, it gets added to the top of the chat area rather than to the bottom, which I thought was a preferable way of doing things. So we've looked at a user sending a message to the server and then the server echoing that message back and populating the chat area. But how about when a new user downloads the index.html page? How do we get this the full array of messages immediately? So the way we do that is, if we look at on the server side and we go back to what we looked at a few videos ago, which is the connection event listener, you can see that in that situation we do actually emit the full messages array. So where previously we were emitting the just the particular object, the particular message object, we were echoing back just that to the client. In this case, we are emitting back the entire array of messages, and then as we looked at in the first video, we dynamically update the page and loop through the entire array to append that here. And we can take a look at that code being received, this message here, message array to client, being received on the client side, right here, message array to client. So here's the array that's being passed. Again, so we're doing the socket.on. Here's the array that is being passed, this messages array here. And then we're simply reverse looping through the array and then appending that to the chat div. So the last WebSocket handler to look at is really the disconnect event. So if we look here, socket.on disconnect, we're on the server side here. If we just go across to our application, we can see that, so if Jake disconnects, so disconnects the TCP WebSocket connection, what we see is the other users who are left, John and James, will have their online users area, this array here, updated and reduced by 1. So let's have a look on the back end how this is working. So socket.on connect. So first thing we're doing is I am removing I'm using the splice method of the array object on my connections array, and I'm just removing our socket from that connections array. This is simply so I can my console.log is working. If we can go to our server quickly, you can see here I like to see when I'm connecting and when I'm disconnecting. So this is allowing me to do that. Now the next thing we're doing is, do you remember earlier we talked about customizing our socket object and appending a property to it called username? Again, I wanted to do this so that I can actually again use the splice method on my users array to remove that particular user from the array before I communicate back the updated users array. And the only really way to reference this username from the server side was to attach that username as a property to this socket object. Again, this was a tip I picked up from Traversy Media, so I appreciate his guidance on this. So the last thing I'm going to do now is I have my updated user array, and I am going to communicate that user array back to all clients, again plural, so sockets.emit. And we're going to pass back the users array, of course, the updated users array. And we've seen this before, but we'll just take a quick look, go back to the client side, and we can see here, sockets.on user array to clients, the array is being passed back. And again, here is the reverse loop I'm doing to actually update dynamically update the page and the online users div here, or I think it's a UL actually, not a div, to repopulate with one less user. If I close down John's, we can see again James is immediately, this UL is updated to reflect the fewer users. However, of course, when we disconnect, we don't want to change the messages, because the messages we want to actually persist for all users. So, I hope this gives you a good idea of the way WebSockets work, and in particularly we've been using the socket.io framework. And in the next video we'll continue to look at, we'll be using WebSockets, but we're going to use it to connect to the Bitcoin API to get a live feed of the Bitcoin price, which is, as well as chat apps, that's another common thing that WebSockets are used for, so real-time updates from something like a stock ticker API. So I look forward to seeing you then.